Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Wednesday evening, which of course means one thing. It is match preview showtime, and the big games keep coming for Mark Bonner's men. This week we travel to Meadow Lane in what is now top of the table clash to take on Notts County. And I'm pleased to say, making his third appearance on the channel, is well-renowned ex-football aficionado Tom Williams. Tom, welcome back to the channel. Appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. It's like I said to you in a message, it's my favourite opposition podcast to do. So glad to be here, and it's always a pleasure to be on, and also to watch the videos as well. Always really well informed. So yeah, glad to be here.
Appreciate the kind words, and right back at you as well. Like I say, one of the best out there in terms of EFL and National League coverage. So if you're not doing it already, Tom's details are in the description at this bottom of this video. Go and click that follow button immediately. It's been a good start, Tom, for both sides, essentially. You sit currently one place and 1 point above us. You've taken 14 points from 18, isn't it? 2 draws to start with, goalless against Tranmere, and then that come from behind 2-2 against Fleetwood, where you was probably the better side, it's fair to say, but didn't defend your box greatly to start with. But then it's been superb from there on, and it's 4 wins on the spin against Grimsby, Swindon, Accrington and Bromley, and scored 12 in that time as well. So we know how prolific you were last season, and we know how much any type of promotion bid got ruined by the fact that you were appalling at the back. I think you scored and conceded over 80 last season, which you can't ship that much and expect to be getting in the top 3, the top 7, the top 10 or the top 12. But it seems that signings were made to sort that end of the pitch out, and we'll get on to them in more detail. Gills, just quickly, because everyone knows about that, being Gills fans predominantly watching this, we've got 13 points from our opening half dozen. There's been wins against Carlisle, Morecambe, Chesterfield and Tranmere, a draw at Fleetwood 0-0, and of course that solitary defeat came at Doncaster Rovers a couple of Saturdays ago. So there's not much in it in terms of current form between the two sides. 2 big questions, Tom, to start with in terms of the Magpies. One is regarding Macauley Langstaff. A lot of numbers that had to be replaced from last season. I think it was 46 games, 28 goals and 6 assists. So that's just astronomical numbers regardless of the level. It's been an encouraging start though. If you look at your 4 goal scorers, which that's all you've got in the league, they're all 4 good goal scorers though. You've got David McGoldrick's got 4 goals. Alassana Jatta's got 3 goals and 2 assists. Dan Crowley, 3 goals, 3 assists. And Jody Jones, the scourge of many a fullback, and that will continue, 4 goals, 3 assists. Yeah, so between them, it's 14 goals scored and 8 assists in an opening 6 games. Must be highly encouraged.
Yeah, I think if you talk about attacking quartets or even trios, if you take McGoldrick out of that, because I think it's hard to take him out of it. He has such a great start, but he is not always first name on the team. He has started a lot more games due to injuries, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But if you take that trio or even that quartet, there's not many, if any, better, I don't think, in the league. I'm going to be honest. And you've taken Langstaff out of that as well, which is the kind of, I guess, scary bit in a scary good way for us. But like, we've taken the top goal scorer out in the league out, and we look just as potent on paper and in action as well. And I think that's the main encouragement is the quality of the players we've got. You know, Jatta provides something completely different to all the other options. You've got Crowley, who I think you struggle to find a better footballer in the league. Maybe yourselves have got one who hasn't featured yet in the league yet. But in terms of players that are regularly playing, I don't think you'll find a better footballer than Dan Crowley. Jody Jones, I think he's probably the best player in the league. He won that award last season. So the quality on display there is unbelievable. And I know that the two sides, Notts and Gills, were the sort of antithesis of each other last season. You were incredible at the back, but struggled a little bit in front of goal. I mean, we were incredible going forwards, but really struggled defensively. So it'd be interesting to see whether we have properly addressed it, because I've got a few question marks over the start in terms of the teams we've played, and we've got a couple of teams in common.
Yep.
And I'd like to say it's been plain sailing, but it hasn't been. And I don't think the teams that we've played, I think you've played stronger teams, to be honest with you. I think you've played Chesterfield and Doncaster. I think you'll be up there. I think other than Tranmere, who we've both played, I don't think we've really faced a team that will be in and around the top seven, maybe Fleetwood, but other than that, I'm not sure that the calibre of sides we've faced in our start have been amazing. So that's my main question mark. But to go back to your question, I've gone on a bit of a tangent there.
No,
really happy with the forward options we've got, and yeah, top scorers in the league. So we can't complain too much about that.
that's it. And conceded 6, but it's a goal a game. But there's a couple of clean sheets in there, so there's reasons to be encouraged. Albeit we know it's 6 games in, and there's going to be flaws and stuff that still needs ironing out. The other big question mark I had, and that was going back to last season, it's the man that replaced Luke Williams when he went to Swansea, Stuart Maynard. I think he come under a little bit of criticism, probably from outsiders and certainly the Notts County fan base as well. It wasn't a good end to the season. I'm not saying that's entirely down to Stuart Maynard. He's had to come in and use other people's tools, and I entirely get that. But it wasn't a good spell. You fell away like catastrophically, let's be quite honest. But are there genuine signs now that he's starting to get it right, that he's starting to get his own sort of stamp on things, and we're seeing developments in terms of Stuart Maynard's team rather than Stuart Maynard working with someone else's team?
Oh, 100%. 100% there is. I mean, I'm a huge fan of him anyway. And so I'm probably always inherently biased in that sense. But I think there are definitely positive signs. I mean, the start has been fantastic. The style is similar, but also slightly different. We have got that word pragmatic is used a lot, but we have got that bit more pragmatism about us. He has recruited a lot of players. There's been a lot of players brought in defensively, definitely, but also midfield. We've signed loads, basically. Our squad is very different to last season, whilst retaining that core of the 4 players we mentioned at the start. Obviously, they were there last year, but then around them, a lot of the team has changed. Which obviously is exciting and needed to happen. I do get the impression, obviously, the feel around the club is amazing right now. Also, we're unbeaten, top of the league, and I think he's getting a lot of supporters on side. I do have a feeling in the back of my head there's still going to be people waiting for a defeat or waiting for a couple of losses on the bounce or a couple of draws on the bounce, and I think the Maynard out people will be back in full force. I do think that. It's hard for a manager to truly get a fan base on side. I guess you had a little bit with Stephen Clements last season where he had a good spells, but there's always that undercurrent of people not being quite convinced. So I do think Maynard will suffer because of that a little bit. Obviously, if he keeps his start up, then that will go away. The results will make that disappear. I think there are massive improvements already. Like I say, I'm slightly cautious to say that we've totally improved because we had a great start last season and we fell away. So I'm cautious in terms of the quality of opposition. I genuinely think after this weekend we'll know a lot more. And we're learning more and more every weekend about Stuart Maynard. Last weekend we went 2-0 down to Bromley and he made the adjustments. He got it wrong. He changed the defence when he didn't need to. And he changed the shape when we didn't really need to, and it backfired. But he made the necessary adjustments and we overcame that and put 4 past Bromley, which we've never done before. I think you guys will be by far the best team we've faced. So we will learn a lot about how our season will go based on this weekend, based on our performance, because I think it's the first real, I don't want to say it's the first real test, because Swindon away, Bromley away, they're tough games. Being 2-0 down to Fleetwood, it's a tough position to be in. We've shown great character so far this season, but I don't think we've faced a team that are genuine contenders yet, whereas I think you guys are. So I think that would be a really interesting test for us to really know about Stuart Maynard this weekend.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I mean, it's 6 games in at the end of the day, so the table's not really taken any sort of proper shape. We get that, but yeah, in terms of what we've seen from everybody, I think, yeah, I have to agree. This is probably going to be your toughest test, and dare I say, it might end up being our toughest test as well. Because away from home, we've not been great. We've only scored once, a couple of clean sheets, but it's been at home where we thrived so far. Albeit we keep making it hard for ourselves and playing for 30 minutes with 10 men, but it seems to be working. There's just one more question, Tom, on Stuart Maynard before we move on to something different, and that's, you sort of mentioned Stephen Clements, so I wanted to sort of link there. How has Stuart Maynard sort of been with the supporter base in terms of, is there a relationship building? Because I think that was one of the big issues with a lot of Gills fans, was that Stephen Clements never really endeared himself to the Gills supporter base. He was very much, I don't want to say robotic, because I understand it was his first job as a number one. So, you know, all the media stuff he wasn't used to doing, and I get that entirely. But I've said over and over again, he felt a little bit like a number two in number one's clothing, and almost like a supply teacher vibe I got from him. How has Maynard been in terms of with the squad and with the supporters so far? Is again, it's difficult because you come in mid-season, you're working with other people's tools, like we've already said. But is he starting to sort of build that rapport with the fans? Because I think it's a hugely important thing to do.
It is massively. It is definitely, especially with again, not to harp on about not to size, but we're obviously a very big club for the level, and the fan base is very vocal. So it's definitely massively important. And I think that he has started to do that. I think there's a parallel to draw with Clements and Maynard, even in that regard. I think the one difference you could say is that while Neil Harris was obviously a light figure at Gills, I don't think he's perhaps held in the same esteem that Luke Williams was at Notts, where he was like the Messiah, and I think anyone who followed Luke Williams was going to struggle. I think in hindsight, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, maybe Jim O'Brien would have been a better choice. He was in as an interim, sort of better choice to see to the end of the season. If you knew how the season was going to go, obviously at the time we were still in the playoffs, so you had to get a manager in. But if you knew that we were going to fall away, it would have been better to give that to someone, an interim manager, see it to the end of the season, and then bring Stuart Maynard in. And I do think there's two versions of Stuart Maynard. There's last season and this season. There's a distinct difference, because last season, a little bit like Stephen Clements, yes, Stuart Maynard had been manager for years, but at Wealdstone. And again, this is all due respect to Wealdstone, but the size of club is chalk and cheese, really. It's night and day between the size of the club, and the media obligations. For Wealdstone, you won't get that many people watching you post-match interviews. And he didn't always do post-match interviews for Wealdstone, and sometimes his assistant would do them, whereas at Notts, the kind of obligations, he does all of them. And I think he was thrust into that limelight, and I'm not sure he was quite ready for that, as well as taking on a full-time club for the first time. All those challenges, I think he cumulatively maybe struggled to adapt a little bit, and it's understandable. And I think that his post-matches were picked apart a little bit by the fan base because of the language he used, or like you said, robotic. I think he would give a lot of the same answers, which is how he believes it. It'd be like, sort of, trust the process. We're doing the right thing. We're getting unlucky. Like, we are playing quite well, but key moments are going against us, and along those lines. And that is what he believes. But sometimes you have to, as a manager, you have to appease the fan base a little bit, and give those kind of answers that maybe would appease the fan base a little bit more. And I think that it's definitely easier this season because we haven't tasted defeat yet, so he's not had to explain the defeat away, and he's not had to give a particularly difficult post-match yet. The two draws we've had, one was the first game of the season, and the other one was a last-minute equaliser, so the feeling was good. So overall, he's not had a really difficult post-match to give yet. But to answer the question about the fan base, and I agree, it's massively important. He is doing a good job at building that relationship. I think over the summer he did a really good job. Notts opened something called the Nest, which is like a fan park type place for our fans to go, and he was in there a lot over the summer for the Euros, sort of mixing with fans, and I think he was making a real effort. I think it's something he was really conscious of, building that rapport. And I don't think it's quite Luke Williams levels yet with the fan base. I think Luke Williams had that unique ability to control a fan base in a room just based on his mannerisms. Stuart Maynard's a different person to that, but I do think he is building relationships with the fans, and the results aren't hurting that effort at the minute. That's for sure.
That's it, yeah. So, like you say, it'd be interesting to see if a defeat does come, then what the relationship looks like. It'll obviously be slightly different, but yeah, it sounds similar to Mark Bonner. Obviously, Mark Bonner's straight down the middle. You know that, you've spoken to him, I've spoken to him. He's just a top football man, and he says it how it is, which is brilliant. Even the other week, one thing that stuck with me was the Morecambe game. He knew we hadn't been great, and he said to the people asking the questions after the game, he went, "I'm not even worried about that tonight." He said, "We've travelled absolutely miles this week." He said, "We've got people missing." He said, "We're going to have a sing-song in the dressing room, going to have fish and chips on the way home and have a laugh." He said, "And we'll worry about it Monday morning." And I thought, you're going to get everybody on board with an attitude like that. Knew we wasn't good enough, mentioned it in the press, but also said, we've dug in and got a result. So yeah, be interesting to see how they match up on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, I know we're 13% of the way through the season, so there's not loads to go on. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and all them type of cliches will come up. But do you feel like Notts County are a much more rounded team from what you've seen this season compared to last year? Like you said, you brought in a lot of players defensively in midfield. I mean, just to chuck a few out there: Alex Bass, Nick Cerula, Jacob Badeau, Rob McDonald, Robbie Cundy. There's others as well, like you've already said. It's a big overhaul in the bottom 2/3 of the pitch, which is where the problems were. Like we had to have an overhaul at the top end of the pitch. But you've retained that threat. We've seen that in abundance already in the early stages of the campaign. But you seem to be more secure generally, looking at stats. But you can tell me more in terms of performances. How have they been? Is there still cause for concern? And the only reason I ask is because I watched the extended highlights of the Bromley game. And I thought very early on in that game, you still look very susceptible to long throws, crosses coming in from wide, direct kicks down the middle of the pitch. You didn't seem there was a couple of times it looked like centre halves were sort of leaving it to each other, and you found yourself in a situation. But like you've already said, Stuart Maynard had the wherewithal to adjust and get it right and recover, which was something we didn't see enough last season.
No, definitely. And I think not to blame an individual, and you can't lay the blame at Robbie Cundy's door, but he came into the team. He hasn't got those relationships with the other members of the defence that the back three and goalkeeper have been building all season. They've been playing every game, and then all of a sudden he was introduced, I think probably to combat those long throws and crosses, but I think it kind of backfired because, like you say, that communication, that relationship, leaving it to each other, I think maybe as I say, it's not Robbie Cundy's fault. He was selected, but he needs more time to adapt and adjust. I think if we have the back three and Badeau, Platt, and Macauley, and then Bass, the goalkeeper, that should be the core. Your 46 game core. And I think as long as there's no injuries or suspensions, that should be your sort of first four names on the team sheet. A lot has been made about Alex Bass. I think he's an excellent signing. He's transformative in goal for us. I think the big thing for him is, as a fan base, not very quick to get onto goalkeepers. And we have to have a goalkeeper that we're behind and that we believe in. We haven't had that for a long time. Since probably Anthony Patterson, who's now the Sunderland goalkeeper, was on loan for a very short period. Everyone was behind him. Since him, there's not really been a goalkeeper at the club who everyone's behind. And that's not just necessarily Alex Bass, though. I think that he gives confidence to the back three. But one thing I've noticed is that Alex Bass's role, he's pulled off some good saves, don't get me wrong, but his general role has been a lot easier than previous goalkeepers because the shots he's faced, by and large, have been a lot from positions. The positions of threat have been reduced. They've been from a lot of pot shots he's had to deal with, and he's got to deal with the difficult bouncer for him. But a lot of them have been straight at him. We've been limiting teams in terms of the chance quality. So I think it's a two-way street as much as that Alex Bass is a brilliant addition and he gives confidence to that back three. At the same time, his performances are looking better because the back three in front of him are protecting him as well. So I think that relationship is so much better this season. Obviously, like you said, it's 13% of the season. I like that. It's not much of the season gone. So we could all fall apart. But from what we've seen so far, we're definitely more well-rounded. We've got a little bit more threat from set piece and height in the team. We look better adjusted to deal with those threats as well, by and large. Other than that start against Bromley, we've been, as a whole, better defensively.
I just picked up on it because you've got Michael Cheek, and then obviously the chances are it's going to be Elliot Nevitt on Saturday, so it's going to be a similar type of battle, isn't it? That you're going to be facing as a trio of centre halves. So it was just something that I noticed immediately, and obviously you do look more when you see a team goes 2-0 down after 10 minutes.
And I think it's true. I think that will be part of your threat, and your plan will be set pieces because we will have loads of the ball. That's what we do, especially at home. We will have a lot of the ball, so your chances will be limited. So you'll have to be effective with the possession you get, and I think that would be something you'll definitely focus on. And it's still a weakness, I think, of any team that plays the way we do because we have so much of the ball. The turnovers will always result in a dangerous moment, but I think we're much better equipped. We are a more well-rounded team, and I think the other element of that is the amount of options we've got. I don't really want to see chopping and changing in the back three and the goalkeeper. I'd like that to stay settled. But the midfield four, if you like, that box that we have, there's so many options. There's loads of different players we brought in. Conor Grant, Curtis Edwards, George Abbott on loan from Spurs. Add that to Matty Palmer, Scott Robertson, who was already there. Like you've got 7 or 8 genuine midfield options, and they all offer something a little bit different. So I think that it allows us to adapt to a different game rather than last season where it was we've got 4 or 5 players for those 4 positions, and we've got to use those 4 no matter what. We can rotate and pick players based on the game situation rather than just who's available.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you want, isn't it? You can, the old saying, you can never have too many good players at any level. In terms of pre-season, I had you third, and again, it was sort of the excitement about the signings in the summer, the strengthening of the key areas that had let you down last season, the retaining aside from Langstaff. I can't remember if I'd done my predictions before Langstaff left or after, to be honest, but it wasn't like it was not going to be a threat with Macauley Langstaff not there. We've mentioned these other players. Like if David McGoldrick's your backup number 9 at League Two level, then you're doing okay. And he can play a couple of other positions as well, which is brilliant for you. So yeah, I had you third, and that was tempered with the Stuart Maynard concerns. But obviously it's pre-season, so I couldn't base it on anything from the new campaign. So my question to you was, what was the hope and the expectation amongst the fan base or yourself before a ball was kicked? Was it top 7, top 3? Because it's a very open division. I think I've said plenty of times, there's probably 75% of this league think they can get in the top 7 at worst. There's going to be a lot of disappointed fan bases when May rolls around. But what was the hope and the expectation before August the 10th came round?
Oh, you're spot on, by the way. There's going to be a lot of disappointed. I think there already are a lot of disappointed fan bases. I think the teams that came down, as a separate point, very briefly, I think the teams that came down are probably the most disappointed because I think by and large they made a poor start and they probably would have expected to be up there. So you're right, it's very open. But I think last season we were a little bit burned by our optimism. We came into the league, looked at Stockport, what they've done in the previous season, and been right up there and probably should have gone up. Had a little bit of a poor start, but ended the season brilliantly and were so close to going up. I think we saw that and the season we'd had against Wrexham and thought we're going to go again. And obviously the start we had lured us into that sense of security that, yeah, we can go back to back here. So I think this season, that has meant that we didn't end the season great and we lost our goal scorer. And like you say, we still had threats. But I think the expectations within the fan base were completely mixed. I think it probably middled around playoffs. I think that's probably the general consensus would be top 7. I think the more optimistic fans would have said top 3. I think in the back of my mind and my heart of hearts, I would have said top 3 is what we should aim for because it's so open, like you say, and we've spent a lot of money. We've got some good players, like you say, McGoldrick's your backup number 9. Like we've got a good squad still, and he will not be cheap as well. I know he towards the end of his career, but he's still it's a big budget we've probably got relative to the league. But then the pessimists in the fan base would have probably, and that's not me saying pessimist, but people that perhaps had low expectations based on Maynard, his effect or impact last season, they probably would have been happy with consolidation and a year of building. So there was a real mixture, but I do think it probably levels out around playoffs. And I still think that's probably the realistic aim. I know that the fan base now are really excited because we've had this start, but as I keep mentioning, I'm just cautious with the level of team. I'm just a little bit reticent to say, yeah, we're going to be top 3 for sure, because I just don't think we've played a genuine contender yet. I could be wrong. One of those 6 could end up being, could win the league or something. But I do think that we haven't played a genuine contender yet, but the signs are very good. So I think before the season, with my personal ambition, I think that probably reflected by and large the fan base. And I think that maybe expectations have gone up now. I'm still probably around 7th, 6th, 7th, but I'm very happy to be proven wrong in a positive way in terms of if we finish in the top 3, which we could do. 3 automatic spots is a lot of spots to aim at. It's brilliant, really. For both of the teams. So yeah, that would be the aim long term, I think. But for now, I'd probably take Glasgow if you offered it me now. But maybe that's me being a little bit cautious of last season.
No, absolutely, and I totally get that. I mean, as Gills fans, we've been stung over the last couple of seasons. Like since the takeover last year, the expectations were high at this time because we won the first 4 games 1-0, but it was never going to be sustainable, and we ended up finishing 12th as well. So I totally get it, and yeah, you play us, and then you've got, you'd say, 2 teams that are struggling in Morecambe and Carlisle going into October. Port Vale could be a good game because they're just starting to turn things around after a slow start. But I'm just looking at your mid-October into November looks pretty tasty. You play Chesterfield on the 12th, Wimbledon on the 19th, Barrow on the 22nd, and then Doncaster on the 9th for the 11th. So again, and the table will have more of a shape by then, and we'll be at that sort of 12 to 15 game stage that every manager and every fan says is important, and we start looking and start taking notice and getting excited or disappointed and all that. But yeah, I think similarly to us, we go to you on Saturday, and then we host Barrow next Saturday to end the month, which is one we definitely want to. Well, I definitely want to win, having been told that apparently I was responsible for getting Stephen Clements the sack. So that would be an interesting one from my point of view. There's no official press conferences have come out yet, Tom, but I'm assuming, Notts County, unless there's injuries, there's not going to be loads of changes. Maybe one tweak to that back three, do you think, after it didn't quite work in the early stages against Bromley?
Yeah, I think Kunde will come out. I think you might see Jatta in for McGoldrick perhaps, and then probably Cerula in to start. Me and Brody on the right, but I think it'll be back to the back three, sort of the 3-5-1-1, whatever you want to call it, 3-5-2 or 3-5-1, whatever you want to call it. That sort of system. We did have obviously the Jones, Crowley, Jatta. They were all missing against Accrington. That was very unexpected. So we keep things very under wraps. They kind of got to match day and all 3 were out of the team, and it was like, well, okay, wow. But all 3 were back against Bromley. So, and all 3 scored against Bromley. So it was positive that they were back. But yeah, not that I'm aware of. There shouldn't be any unexpected team news. But this season we've had a few surprises already that has meant that David McGoldrick's had to step up. So not a bad fourth choice attacker, I suppose.
Done okay, hasn't he? To be fair to him. I think in terms of us, there's still question marks over plenty. We know we're not going to have Jake Turner, long-term ankle injury. We're not going to have Ethan Coleman suspended, and Timmy Dieng, I think, still about 2 or 3 weeks away. But fingers crossed, touch wood and all that. I think the injury problems are starting to clear up. So fingers crossed, definitely. We might have some of Connor Masterson, Johnny Williams, Aaron Rowe, Robbie McKenzie, or Bradley Dack available at least on the bench. I think if McKenzie's fit, he comes straight in. So for me, that would likely be the only change from last Saturday's win against Tranmere. So that would be McKenzie straight in for Ethan Coleman. And the rest here, I don't see the point, again, to use another cliche. If it's not broken, don't fix it and all that type of stuff. Final question, Tom, and then I'm going to let you go and enjoy your evening, is the dreaded score prediction.
Yeah, it's a tough one, this, because like we said, it's the best attack, it's the best defence. I've gone on the basis that you've struggled to score away from home so far this season. Kind of basing it on the Doncaster result as well. Not that I think we're massively similar to Doncaster in terms of style, but we're quite similar in terms of firepower, I would say, and the amount of good attacking options that they've got. I think is similar to what we've got. Maybe it's the optimism. I'm going to go for Notts 2, Gillingham 0. I think that, like I say, you've struggled to score on the road, and we've kept a few clean sheets this season. But I think it'll be a close game, which invariably means one team's going to run away with it. But I do think it'll be a close game. I think both are very good sides. And I think that regardless of the result, I'd be interested to learn a lot about both teams this weekend, although you've played some very good sides already. But I think regardless of the result, I think both teams will be up there in the top 7 come the end of the season. I'm pretty confident of that. Yeah,
I can't disagree with that. I mean, I'm going to back our side to get something. And this is based not just on the fact that, I have to back my team and we're playing well, but the fact that I was looking at head-to-heads. I didn't realise that we're, I wouldn't say it's a curse, but since 1985, we played 23 times. We've won 14 of them. And we've only lost 3 out of 12 at Meadow Lane in that period as well, winning 6.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was that emphatic. Obviously, last season was probably one of our best performances in the entire campaign.
Yeah.
Albeit against a side that were out of form and had just lost their manager, I think. But yeah, I mean, we didn't score three in a game a lot. So anyway, anything that said two or three next to Gillingham was always going to be sort of appreciated by the supporter base. But based on that, but also the fact that I'm very aware of Jatta and McGoldrick and Jones and Crowley and all that type of thing, and you're slightly better defensively than you were last season, I'm going to go score draw. So I'm going to go for a 1-1, which I don't think would be a disaster for either side. It keeps you top, you'll be happy, and it keeps us right on your coattails. And it's another tough game, at least on paper, in terms of pre-season sides that we can tick off. So yeah, but you never know. Should be a good game. Really looking forward to coming up. I've been to Meadow Lane before, but it was 25 years ago. We was actually wearing this shirt. That's why I put it on the ceiling.
Wow.
It was 1999. You probably weren't even born, were you? No, just to make me feel old. Lovely stuff. Yeah, we was already in the playoff. We won 1-0. I think the pitch was basically sand. Carlos Arbor scored the winner, and we went on to lose to Man City at Wembley that year. That's how long ago it was.
Wow. Wow. That is a blast from the past, but it's a lovely shirt, by the way. I do really like that. I know it's got sort of ready colour to it. I know you've got loads of it. I know it's got ready to it, so I shouldn't be praising a shirt with sort of ready colours on.
Not allowed.
But it is a nice shirt, I have to say.
Yes, fingers crossed we can put in a similar performance. But yeah, like I say, really looking forward to it. And as always, Tom, appreciate your knowledge and appreciate your time more. So thank you very much. Like I said, Gills fans, Notts County fans, at the end of every episode, I do appreciate your time. If you're still watching, it really, really is appreciated. Please keep hitting that like button and please consider hitting that subscribe button as we strive to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the season. And also go and follow Tom, like I've already encouraged. The link also to Gills fan Justin Foot's charity walk, which starts on the October the 1st for Prostate Cancer UK, is in the description as well. So if you can spare a couple of quid, it'd be absolutely brilliant for Justin. Yeah, he sets off on the 1st of October, like I say, another one of his epic treks. But yeah, that is enough for this evening's episode. Thanks again to Tom. We will be at Meadow Lane, myself, Ava and Nick, and whoever else wants to come and see us for a match day live at the weekend. And then, of course, return Sunday evening, looking back on, hopefully, a positive performance and a positive result. But until then, I hope the rest of your week is not too stressful. And more importantly, up the Gills.